Good afternoon, students. I am Dr. Nidhi Mishra, tutor in Department of Pathology. Today's practical class is on acute inflammation. We'll start with the learning objectives first. So, by the end of the session for today's practical, you should be able to define acute inflammation. You should be able to enumerate the classical signs of acute inflammation. You should be able to describe the various types of acute inflammation. You should be able to identify and describe the gross findings of acute appendicitis. You should be able to identify and describe the microscopic features of acute appendicitis. You should be able to describe the microscopic features of acute meningitis and how to correlate with clinical and CSF finding. Then you should be able to identify and describe the gross finding of pyogenic liver abscess, and finally you should be able to describe the microscopic features of pyogenic liver abscess and how to correlate with clinical finding. So what is the definition of acute inflammation? Acute inflammation is a local response by the host to various exogenous and endogenous stimuli which causes cell injury as well as provoke a protective host response. So whenever any person is exposed to any exogenous or endogenous stimuli which causes cell injury, the person will produce a local response which will be a protective host response, and that is called as your acute inflammation. Now it is rapid in onset and it lasts for small duration only, that is from hours to days. What are the classical signs of acute inflammation? We have main 5 classical signs: rubor, that is redness; Kähler, that is heat; tumor, that is swelling; dolor, that is pain; and functiolese, that is loss of function. So whenever you are seeing any abscess anywhere in the body, you will see these 5 signs. Now what are the various types of acute inflammation? We have mainly 4 types. First one is serous type, which is characterized by scanty cells, and it is seen in large fluid filled cavities, example pericardial or peritoneal cavity. Then we have a fibrinous type, in which there will be exudation of large amount of plasma proteins, fibrinogen and fibrin, example is pericarditis. Then we have a suppurative type or the abscess type, in which there is large amount of purulent exudate. So you will have large amount of neutrophil collections. The most common example is abscess or acute appendicitis. Then we have a mixed type, in which you will see combination of the above 3. So you can have serofibrinous, you can have fibrinopurulent. Now we'll start with acute appendicitis. So as you all know, appendix is a vestigial organ. It is of around 5 to 7 centimeter in size, and it is situated at the right iliac fossa at ileocecal junction. Why it is called as vestigial organ? Because as such we don't know the proper function of appendix. When you see the normal histology, we have 4 layers in appendix like any other part of the large intestine or small intestine. So first, the innermost layer is your mucosa layer, which is having this tall columnar cells along with the goblet cells and crypt formation. Then we have submucosa. Apart from that, we have some lymphoid nodules in this area of appendix, where you can see you have these germinal centers also. So you can have primary follicle as well as secondary follicles within the appendix. Then we have a submucosa followed by muscularis externa, which has again 2 layers, inner circular and outer longitudinal layer, and then we have a serosa covering. Here you can see there is a mesentery. The whole appendix is covered by mesentery, which helps in passing of the blood vessels into the appendix. This is a higher power view. This you can see here is the mucus layer, which is lined by tall columnar cells along with the goblet cells. These are all crypts. Then you have, as I told you, lymphoid collection. Here you cannot see any secondary germinal center. Then you have a layer of submucosa. Then you have a layer of inner circular layer and outer longitudinal layers of smooth muscle, that is your muscularis externa, and then we have finally the serosal layer. Clinically, what you will see, the most commonly appendicitis affects adolescent and young adults. Males are more commonly affected than females. pain, most common presentation is umbilical pain, which is also called as the referred pain, followed by pain in the right lateral quadrant or right iliac fossa. Patient might have nausea, vomiting, abdominal tenderness and fever. When you do a CBC, the total count will be more than 15,000. Now, why the patient will have a referred pain in the umbilicus? So, what happens in the initial stage of appendicitis? Because of inflammation, there is increased secretion from the goblet cells within the appendix lumen. So, collection of these secretion or the pooling of these secretion within the appendix leads to entrapment of the secretion, and this causes swelling of the appendix, and it will stretch the visceral peritoneum. Because the visceral peritoneum is supplied by the T10 vertebral nerve, which is a general visceral afferent, and the same nerve is supplying the periumbilical region. When you see the dermatome area, this periumbilical region or the umbilical region is supplied by the T10 dermatome. So, this pain from the appendix will be referred to the umbilicus region. Now, when the appendicitis progresses, the inflammation becomes transmural. What do you mean by transmural? It will infiltrate the whole layer of muscularis externa. It will pass from the mucosa to submucosa, then to muscularis externa, and it will go into the serosa. That is called as transmural. Mural stands for muscle. So, along the muscle layer. So, when it invades the transmural layer, it irritates the parietal peritoneum, and from the parietal peritoneum, it will start getting the pain through the general somatic afferent axon, which supplies the muscle and the skin of this area, and this is called as McBurney's point. So, McBurney's point, it indicates the base of the appendix. How you find the McBurney's point? You take anterior superior iliac spine, you take umbilicus, you draw an arbitrary line, and the junction of outer 1/3 and inner 2/3 is your McBurney's point. So, first the patient will have pain around the periumbilical region, then it will be in the right iliac fossa at the McBurney's point. Now, what all complications could occur? There could be perforation, there could be pylophlebitis, it can lead to liver abscess, bacteremia, and sometimes it may be associated with intestinal obstruction. Now, what are the conditions mimicking appendicitis? So, if the patient is presenting with pain abdomen, periumbilical pain or right iliac fossa pain, what other differential you should have in your mind? First is mesenteric lymphadenitis, then we can have Meckel's diverticulum, and in female patient always think of acute salpingitis and ectopic pregnancy. Now, coming to the pathological findings, that is gross and microscopic picture. So, appendicitis we divide into 3 stages. First is acute appendicitis, second is acute suppurative appendicitis, and third one is acute gangrenous appendicitis. So, in acute appendicitis, the serosa layer will become dull, granular and reddish in color. Normally, the serosa of appendix is glistening, but in case of acute appendicitis, it becomes dull and granular. Microscopically, you will see neutrophil collection throughout the mucosa, submucosa and muscularis propria. You can have congested vessels in the subserosa. So, this is a gross picture of acute appendicitis. This is a specimen of appendix around 5 cm in length, and you can see the serosa is somewhat granular, congested, edematous, radish. You can see these congested vessels. So, this is a gross finding in acute appendicitis. When you go for microscopy, you can see this is your mucosal layer of tall columnar cell. You have some amount of necrosis over here. This is the normal lymphoid collection in appendix, and you have these neutrophil infiltrate, and as I told you, you will have transmural, means the whole muscularis external layer will be affected by the inflammatory cells or the neutrophils. So, this is a classical finding in acute appendicitis. Coming to acute suppurative appendicitis, here your appendix will become swollen and it will have a fibrinopurulent reaction over the serosa. Microscopically, you will see abscess formation within the wall along with ulceration and foci of suppurative necrosis in the mucosa. So, when you see the gross finding, here you can see this appendix is around 7 cm in length, and you can see this whitish color areas which are nothing but fibrinopurulent exudates. It is somewhat swollen also, and these whitish area is your fibrinopurulent exudate. Again, one more picture of gross. You can see this is a specimen of appendix, and this whitish area, this you can see all this is very much congested or hyperemic, and this whitish color area, that is your fibrinous exudate or fibrinopurulent exudate. When you see the longitudinal cut section, so this we have cut the appendix longitudinally. You can see this necrotic sloughed mucosa, this all necrotic sloughed mucosa is mainly because of abscess formation. Again, one more gross picture. You can see this is a specimen of appendix, and you have these whitish color purulent exudate over the surface, over the serosal surface. Again here you have, so these are all fibrinopurulent exudate over the surface or the serosal surface of the appendix. Now this is just for comparison. Here you can see the appendix, and here you can see the appendix. The above one is your acute appendicitis, where the serosa looks somewhat dull, granular, and it is having these congested vessels. It does not appear that much swollen. When you see this lower picture, you can see the appendix is quite swollen. You have these fibrinopurulent exudate over the serosal surface. So this is your acute appendicitis, and this is your acute suppurative appendicitis. Now when you go for the microscopy, you can see this is your normal mucosa, and here your mucosa is completely sloughed off. It's full of necrosis. So here you have only necrotic debris and neutrophil collection. So this is your abscess formation. This is a higher picture or higher power view, where you can see the infiltration of neutrophils in the appendiceal wall. More higher view, this is your mucosa which is sloughing off. This here it is completely gone. You are not seeing any mucosa, just this pinkish necrotic material, neutrophilic cells, and some cellular debris. So this is your abscess formation or the suppurative stage. This is your transmural inflammation. This is your muscle cell, smooth muscle cell. Smooth muscle cell, as already described, it's having elongated blunt end nuclei. So these are blunt end. So this is your externa layers, muscularis externa, and you have neutrophilic infiltration throughout the layer. So this is called as transmural inflammation. Now these neutrophils, they are going into the serosal fat. These are all serosal fats, and you can see the inflammation. Coming to next stage, that is your acute gangrenous appendicitis, in which you will have large areas of, again, hemorrhagic ulceration of mucosa. The surface will appear green, black, gangrenous. So histological criteria, again you will have neutrophilic infiltration of the muscularis properia. So this is a specimen of acute gangrenous appendicitis, where you can see this is your fibrinopurulent exudate, but you can see somewhat blackish color discoloration over here. When you take the longitudinal cut section, you can very nicely see these blackish greenish area along with the necrotic material within the lumen. So this is your acute gangrenous appendicitis. When you see the microscopy, you have large amount of necrosis, you will have neutrophilic debris, you will have neutrophils, so you will have an abscess formation. This is the museum specimen we have in our department. So how we are going to describe the specimen is, this is a mounted specimen, this is a mounting jar, and you have a specimen of appendix here. So this is a mounted specimen of appendix. You have to mention the approximate size. So mounted specimen of appendix, measuring around 5 cm in length, and the serosal surface appears congested and edematous. Findings in favor of acute appendicitis. Again, this is a second jar in which you can see there are 4 specimens of appendix. So you have to describe, this is a mounted specimen of appendix having 4 specimen of appendix with so and so size, with the serosa appears congested and edematous, favoring acute appendicitis. Now coming to the next case. Here we have a 25-year-old male patient who presented with fever, headache, projectile vomiting, and neck stiffness. So what you will think in this case is meningitis. So what is meningitis or leptomeningitis? It refers to an inflammatory process of leptomeninges and CSF within the subarachnoid spaces. Now when this inflammation extends from the meninges into the brain parenchyma, it is called as meningoencephalitis. Coming to the etiology, most commonly infection is the cause for meningitis, but sometimes you can have chemical meningitis also. Infection, you can have acute pyogenic meningitis, aseptic meningitis or chronic meningitis. We are going to discuss only about acute pyogenic meningitis. So what are the organisms responsible for that? Depending upon the age, the organisms also differ. So if it's a neonate who presented with signs and symptoms of acute meningitis, the most common organism will be E. coli or group B streptococci. In infants and children, it will be H. influenza. In adolescents and young adults, it will be Neisseria meningitidis, and in case of adults, it will be Streptococcus pneumoniae and Listeria monocytogenes. So what you will do once a patient presented with a characteristic history of fever, headache, projectile vomiting and neck stiffness, and you are suspecting patient is having meningitis, you will do a CSF analysis. CSF analysis, you will do a pathological examination, then you will do a biochemical test, and then finally you go for a microbiology or the culture to know the exact organism. So what we see in CSF in case of bacterial meningitis. Here I have given finding for all type, but we are going to discuss only about the bacterial meningitis. So opening pressure, whenever any clinician is performing a lumbar puncture, they will note down the opening pressure. So if it is elevated, it is more in favor of acute pyogenic meningitis. When you do the total count in that CSF, count will be more than 1000 per millimeter cube. In differential count, you will see predominantly polymorphonuclear cells, that is neutrophil. When you do the biochemical test, protein will be mild to markedly elevated, and when you do the CSF glucose, you have to take serum CSF to serum ratio of glucose, and it will be normal to markedly decreased in case of bacterial meningitis. Coming to the gross finding, obviously we don't receive any specimen of acute bacterial meningitis. We receive the specimen only as an autopsy case. So as you can see, this is a case of acute bacterial meningitis. You are not able to see any subarachnoid space. What you are seeing is this purulent material lying within the subarachnoid space. So you cannot see the normal sulci and gyri which is seen in a normal brain. Again, another case in which you can see this purulent or pus like material in the subarachnoid space. You are not able to make out any sulci or gyri over here. This is the cut surface. You can see these are sulci. These are all the sulci which are filled with some purulent necrotic or exudative material, and this is your arachnoid membrane. So this is your arachnoid membrane, this is your subarachnoid space in which you can see some necrotic material. Now when the inflammation extends from the meninges into the brain, it can lead to either only encephalitis or it can lead to abscess formation. So this is a brain abscess, this black color is a brain abscess, and this reddish color is your edema which is usually seen around the abscess. Along with that, you can see the midline shift because of abscess formation. This is again an autopsy case. You can see this is the skull cap, and you have the brain over here, and you can see this purulent material which is present in the subarachnoid. For the sulci at all. So this is a fibrinopurulent exudate covering the subarachnoid space. So this is a case of acute pyogenic meningitis. When you go for microscopy, this is your normal brain parenchyma. This whole is a normal brain parenchyma. This is your layer of meninges, and you can see these are all acute inflammatory cells which are lying within the meningeal layer. Going for a higher power view, this is your layer of meninges, and you can see these are all neutrophils. These are all neutrophils which is infiltrating the meningeal layer. So this is a case of acute meningitis or acute pyogenic meningitis. Again, one more example. Here you can see you have these neutrophils, you have these lots of neutrophils over here. These are all neutrophils, and you have some amount of macrophages along with that. This is again a neutrophil. So this is again case of bacterial or acute pyogenic meningitis. Coming to the last case, here we have a 45-year female patient who presented with complaint of fever with chills, anorexia, right upper quadrant pain and malaise. On examination, tender hepatomegaly is present. So whenever you are getting any case with the complaint of fever, chills, right upper quadrant pain and tender hepatomegaly, always think of liver abscess. So what is a liver abscess? It is a space occupying suppurative lesion in the liver resulting from invasion of microorganisms entering directly from an injury through the blood vessels or through the bile duct. Now there are three major forms of liver abscess. One is pyogenic liver abscess, which is the most common form, and it could be polymicrobial. Most often it is actually polymicrobial, means you will have more than one organism which is involved in formation of this abscess. Then you have amoebic abscess, in which the only organism responsible is Entamoeba histolytica, and then you have fungal abscess, which occur most commonly due to Candida species and usually seen in immunocompromised patients. Now, how a patient can develop pyogenic liver abscess? There are four ways. So as you all know, liver has dual blood supply. One is through hepatic artery, one is through portal vein. So the organism comes through the portal vein. Whatever areas are drained by the portal vein, it will go into the liver. So if there is any infection in that area, portal vein will take that bacteria and will give it to the liver. So one is through portal vein, another is through hepatic artery. So if you have infection anywhere in the body, for example, if patient is having any osteomyelitis, the infection will travel from the bone via the blood, it will go into the circulation, and via the hepatic artery it will enter into the liver. So that is the second route. Third route is through direct extension. So as you all know, liver is a subdiaphragmatic structure. It lies just below the diaphragm on the right side. So if there is any subphrenic abscess or empyema on the right side, or nephritic or perinephritic abscess, it can lead to direct extension and formation of liver abscess. Then last and least common cause is trauma, which could be because of penetrating injury to the liver. So this is the normal liver. This is how a normal liver will look. The external surface will be very much smooth and glistening, and it will be brownish in color. This is the cut surface. You can see this is the cut surface of liver. You have various bile ducts. It's uniform and brownish in color. This is a specimen of pyogenic liver abscess. So you can see this is the cut surface of the liver, and you can see these multiple abscess cavities. These are all, you can see these are all cavities, small to big in size, which is filled with these yellowish exudative pus-like material. So this is your pyogenic liver abscess. Again, this is the cut surface of the liver. Here you can see these abscess cavities which are filled with purulent material. So this is a pyogenic liver abscess. Coming to microscopy, so before going for histopathology, you should know the normal histology. So this is how a normal liver will look. This is your central vein. These are all your hepatocytes which are lying in cords, and this is your portal triad, where you have a bile duct, a artery and a vein. So this is your portal triad, and this is your normal cords of hepatocytes. In case of pyogenic abscess, you can see this is your central vein. Here you have cords of hepatocytes, and here there is a collection of neutrophils along with necrotic debris. So this is what you will see in case of a pyogenic liver abscess. This is our museum specimen. This is a cut specimen of liver, or the cut surface of liver, which is showing a cavity lesion which is filled with necrotic material, so favoring pyogenic liver abscess. So this is all for today's practical. We have seen three specimens, and we have seen three specimens. We have seen two specimens and three slides of microscopy. Acute appendicitis, then we have acute meningitis, and we have pyogenic liver abscess. All these three will have collection of neutrophils in their structure, and that's all for today. Thank you so much.